You know what's wild? Right now, as you're watching this, there are billions of neurons firing in your brain, creating thoughts, memories, emotions. But there's one simple action that can completely transform your brain chemistry in less than 20 seconds. I'm talking about hugging. Yeah, I know it sounds almost too simple, but stick with me here, because what actually happens in your brain when you hug someone is absolutely fascinating. And honestly, it might change how you think about human connection. So here's the thing. Most of us hug people all the time, right? We hug our parents, our friends, our partners, but we never really stop to think about what's actually going on beneath the surface. And when I started digging into the research on this, I was genuinely shocked by how powerful something as simple as a hug really is. We're talking about measurable changes in your brain, your hormones, even your immune system. This isn't just feel-good stuff. This is hard science. Let me start with what happens in the first few seconds of a hug. The moment you embrace someone, your brain starts releasing oxytocin. You've probably heard of this one. It's often called the love hormone or the bonding hormone, and for good reason. A study published in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology found that oxytocin levels significantly increase during physical touch, particularly huggings. But here's what makes oxytocin so incredible. It doesn't just make you feel warm and fuzzy. It literally rewires your stress response. When oxytocin floods your system, it directly counteracts cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone. Researchers at the University of Vienna conducted a study where they measured cortisol levels in participants before and after hugging, and they found that people who received regular hugs had cortisol levels that were up to 32% lower than those who didn't. Think about that for a second. A simple 20-second hug can reduce your stress hormone by almost a third. That's more effective than a lot of stress management techniques people spend hundreds of dollars on. But it gets even better. Oxytocin doesn't just reduce stress. It actually changes how your brain processes social information. There's this region in your brain called the amygdala, which is basically your fear center. It's what triggers your fight or flight response when you perceive danger. When oxytocin is released during a hug, it dampens the activity in your amygdala. A study from MIT found that oxytocin makes people more trusting, more empathetic, and less fearful of social situations. So that feeling of safety and connection you get when someone hugs you, that's not just emotional. That's your amygdala literally calming down because of the neurochemical changes happening in real time. Now let's talk about dopamine and serotonin, because these two are major players in what makes hugging feel so good. Dopamine is your brain's reward chemical. It's what gets released when you eat something delicious, when you accomplish a goal, when you do basically anything your brain interprets as beneficial for survival. When you hug someone, especially someone you care about, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. This creates that pleasurable sensation, that little rush of happiness. And here's where it gets really interesting. Research from Carnegie Mellon University showed that people who received regular hugs were significantly less likely to get sick. When exposed to a common cold virus, the researchers found that the perceived social support from hugging accounted for about 32% of the protective effect against illness. Your immune system actually gets stronger when you hug people regularly. How crazy is that? We spend so much time worrying about vitamins and supplements and the perfect diet, and meanwhile, human touch is literally boosting your immune function. Serotonin is the other big one. This neurotransmitter regulates your mood, your sleep, your appetite. Low serotonin levels are linked to depression and anxiety. When you hug someone, your brain increases serotonin production. A study in the journal Comprehensive Psychology found that therapeutic touch, including hugging, led to measurable increases in serotonin levels in participants. This is why people who are more physically affectionate tend to have lower rates of depression. It's not just correlation. There's a direct causal relationship between physical touch and the neurochemicals that regulate your mental health. And hey, if you're finding this as fascinating as I did when I first learned about it, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps more people discover this kind of content. And honestly, I think everyone should know about the science behind something as simple and powerful as a hug. Let me tell you about something called the vagus nerve, because this is where things get really mind-blowing. The vagus nerve is this long nerve that runs from your brainstem down through your chest and into your abdomen. It's a major part of your parasympathetic nervous system, which is basically your rest and digest system. It's what calms you down after stress, what helps you relax, what tells your body that everything's okay. When you hug someone, especially in a long, genuine embrace, you stimulate your vagus nerve. This activation triggers what's called the vagal brake, which slows your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, and shifts your entire nervous system into a state of calm. Research from the University of North Carolina found that women who received more frequent hugs from their partners had significantly lower blood pressure and heart rates. We're talking about real, measurable cardiovascular benefits from something that takes 20 seconds and costs absolutely nothing. But here's something that really surprised me. The type of hug matters. A quick pat on the back doesn't trigger the same neurological response as a genuine, sustained embrace. Scientists have found that hugs need to last at least 20 seconds to maximize oxytocin release. That's because it takes time for your nervous system to register the sustained pressure and warmth, to recognize that you're safe, that you're connected to another human being. Those awkward quick hugs we often do, they're nice, but they're not doing much for your brain chemistry. There's also something fascinating about how your brain distinguishes between different types of touch. Your skin has these specialized nerve fibers called C-tactile afferents. These fibers respond specifically to gentle, affectionate touch. They're literally wired to respond to the temperature, pressure, and velocity of a caring hug. When these fibers are activated, they send signals directly to your insular cortex, which is the part of your brain that processes emotions and bodily sensations. This is why a hug from someone you trust feels fundamentally different from a handshake or a casual touch. Your brain has dedicated neural pathways just for processing affectionate physical contact. And get this, research published in the journal Psychological Science found that even hugging an inanimate object, like a cushion or a stuffed animal, can provide some stress relief benefits, particularly for people with low self-esteem. But hugging another person is exponentially more powerful because of the social and emotional layers involved. Your brain doesn't just process the physical sensation, it processes the emotional context, the relationship, the sense of being cared for by another conscious being. That's why nothing really replaces human-to-human contact. So here's what I want you to take away from this. We live in a world that's more connected digitally than ever before, but we're experiencing what some researchers call a touch starvation epidemic. We're texting, we're video calling, we're liking posts, but we're hugging less. And your brain is paying the price for that. The science is crystal clear. Regular physical affection, particularly hugging, reduces stress, boosts your immune system, lowers your risk of heart disease, improves your mood, and strengthens your social bonds. All of that from something that's completely free and takes less than half a minute. If you found this valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. We dive deep into the science behind everyday human experiences, and there's so much more to explore. Thanks for watching, and hey, maybe go hug someone today. Your brain will thank you for it.